first glance, it might look like a motorcycle rally or ride in honor of someone. But this is actually a protest, one held last week in the South American nation of Peru, and the problem is a complicated one. Peru is struggling with violence. Certain types of crime jumped dramatically between 2023 and 2024, and they've continued to rise. The government's been under increasing pressure to deal with the attacks, some of which have been carried out by people on motorcycles. And in mid-April, new restrictions were announced. Anyone who wants to ride in the capital of Lima has to wear a vest with a license plate on its back, and passengers aren't allowed. The clear idea is to clamp down on attackers who try to get around and get away on bikes. But the protesters here say they're bikers, not criminals, and that those methods won't work. They agree their country has a crime problem. The protest's leader says more law enforcement is needed, even if it means that lawful riders are stopped by police multiple times daily. We have a truly international show today on The World from A to Z. I'm Carl Azuz. Wherever you're watching from, welcome. In the Middle Eastern nation of Iran, confusion, concerns, and questions are in the air following a major explosion on the nation's southern coast. It happened at a port on Saturday. Video of the scene indicated it started with a fire that spread to containers filled with chemicals, which then blew up. Dozens of people were killed, and as many as 1,000 were reportedly injured in the blast. Iranian officials were expecting to have the flames extinguished by Sunday night. But what kind of material could cause such a tremendous explosion? An Iranian news agency run by the government says it was hazardous goods and chemical materials. It did not say what kinds of chemicals. Some experts say it's possible a blast like this could be caused by fertilizer, but a private maritime security firm says it was solid fuel used for missiles, an explosive material that hadn't been handled properly. International media say shipments of this fuel had been in the area in recent months, and the Associated Press reported that Iran would have wanted missile fuel to replenish what it used when it fired rockets into Israel last year. However, an Iranian military official called the missile fuel reports baseless, saying no such material was held at the port. Officials from his country did not suggest the explosion was caused by some sort of attack, but they did acknowledge there had been, quote, attempted sabotage in the past. Why does this matter? Partly because the explosion happened at a sensitive time. Officials from Iran and the United States were meeting in another country on Saturday for negotiations centered on Iran's controversial nuclear program.
A final send-off for Pope Francis. More than 250,000 people descended on St. Peter's Square to pay their respects for the pontiff, according to the Vatican. The funeral began Saturday with an elaborate set of rituals at the square, where Francis made his public appearance for Easter just 6 days earlier. Among those in attendance were delegations from over 130 nations, including the United States, as President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania paid their respects. The cardinal delivering the homily described him as a pope among the people. Thousands of people gathered outside the Vatican while Francis's body was taken over the river Tiber to be buried in a tomb in Rome's Basilica de Santa Maria Maggiore. The 88-year-old beloved pontiff will be the first pope in over a century to be buried outside the Vatican in a modest burial. In Rome, I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
Word of knowledge. An American historical figure named Henry McCarty is better known by what other name? Hank Williams, Mickey Mantle, Herman Melville, Billy the Kid. Having been born in the mid-1800s and died in 1881, the person who also went by William H. Bonney Jr. was none other than Billy the Kid.
On this date in world history. World War II ended in 1945, but April 28, 1952 was when the Treaty of Peace with Japan took effect. Also known as the Treaty of San Francisco, it formally ended the Allies' war with Japan, set up compensation for some victims of Japan's wartime actions, and ended the Allied occupation of the Asian country. Billy the Kid's infamous legend grew on April 28, 1881, when the Wild West outlaw made his last escape from jail. He killed 2 deputies as he fled from the facility in New Mexico, where he'd been locked up for killing a sheriff. but another sheriff named Pat Garrett caught up with and killed Billy the Kid a few months later. And what was probably history's most famous mutiny took place on this date in 1789. After visiting Tahiti, some sailors aboard Britain's HMS Bounty rebelled against Captain William Bligh. He and those who still supported him were set adrift, sailed thousands of miles in a small boat, and some survived and returned to England. Most of the mutineers who tried to resettle in the South Pacific were captured or killed, though some of their descendants survive today on Pitcairn Island.
History isn't only in textbooks, it's all around you. At Educational Travel Adventures, we take students beyond the classroom and out into the world. Your adventure starts here.
How are you?
Good, you?
Good.
An unlikely friendship between a senior state trooper and a scrub tech. It all started one August morning in 2022 after Abby Jo Rutledge saw Alabama State Trooper J.T. Brown in her rearview mirror on Highway 78.
So I hit her with my radar just like that.
Rutledge was just 20 years old at the time.
What was going through your head when you got pulled over?
Just that sinking, empty stomach feeling like, oh, man, I'm going to have to pay an expensive ticket.
She was shaking very bad. She was super nervous. I was like, hey, we're going to try to win somebody over today.
Brown said he decided to take a different approach with Rutledge. The two of them ended up talking for about 10 to 15 minutes.
She really didn't have a clue what she wanted to do with her life, and I guess me being a dad, I was like, well, you know what, we need to talk about this.
It was him telling me to start my life or else I would get a ticket.
Brown let Rutledge off with the warning and advice that changed her life.
Promise me you'll go to scrub or nursing school and slow down and I won't give you a ticket.
Within hours of being pulled over, you're making the decision to change your life.
As soon as I got to where I was going, I called my mother and I said, I need your help to get me in this program.
The traffic stop was serendipitous. Rutledge's mom taught Trooper Brown when he was studying to be a surgical tech himself years earlier.
Had no clue that her mother was one of my instructors, because me and her mother obviously didn't talk about that.
Last year, they were both there to see Rutledge graduate from the surgical technology program in Jasper.
When you saw him there show up at your graduation, what did you feel?
It was just pure joy and relief, really. I started crying immediately.
Rutledge now works as a surgical technician at the University of Alabama Birmingham Hospital.
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here.
Quote, work hard and be nice. It's advice that's helped me a lot, and it's the motto of Bighorn Middle School. From Bighorn, Wyoming, we welcome Mrs. Bainter's class at the home of the Rams in the Cowboy State. Second stops in South Carolina. From Little River, we see Mrs. Amy's class at North Myrtle Beach Middle School. The Chiefs are online in the Palmetto State. And it totally makes sense there'd be Spartans in a city named Battle Creek. Mrs. Scarp's class at Lakeview High School is watching from the Great Lakes state of Michigan.
If you happen to spot a freaky 10-foot bird traversing the English countryside recently, don't worry, it wasn't some mutant feathered freak of nature. It was just Matt Trevelyan, an intrepid do-gooder doing some good in a great big bird costume. Trevelyan, a former puppet maker, works for the Nidderdale National Landscape, a national park-like protected area in northern England. Trevelyan handcrafted this ornate costume, measuring 10 feet from tip to tail feather, to look exactly like the Eurasian curlew, an iconic and threatened UK wading bird. The cumbersome getup may seem a silly sight, but it was far from bird-brained. Over 3 days, Trevelyan walked 53 total miles using the head-turning curlew costume to raise awareness of the threatened species, spreading the word on the bird, and a pair of charity sites where people can donate and take action to help protect this dwindling species.
Bet a lot of folks were tweeting about that, if you know what I'm saying. And if some creeped out kids wanted to take flight, that's nothing next to what cats were thinking. Even on Sesame Street, one look at that big bird is enough to keep them from kitten, stop their mocking, silence their warbling, and seek the first cheap bus ticket out of Birdland, because those with claws to commit assault and birdery would be ready to fly the coop. I'm Carl Azuz for The World from A to Z. Always good to have you watching. You are the best part of what we do.